What's going on, guys? It's your boy Scrub here, back again with another video. Hope you guys are all having an absolutely fantastic day. I know I am. If you are, be sure to press the like button. Otherwise, no joke, no scam. Your teacher will be forced to draw on your forehead. Yeah, that's right, guys. I am not kidding. If you don't press the like button, your teacher's gonna take a Crayola marker and draw weird things on your forehead, and that's just awkward. Seriously, though, guys, I hope you guys are all having an absolutely incredible day. It is your boy Scrub here. And today, as you can tell from the title, I'm gonna be telling you guys the story of pro-revenge on a neighbor. Now, this isn't a Karen story. I'm gonna warn you all right now. It's actually from the pro-revenge Reddit because they've just got some juicy stories and I've been reading them basically all day. And this one I just figured had to be made into a YouTube video because it is banging. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. So I've got some family that lives out in the country, right? Like basically in the middle of nowhere. Their neighbors are pretty far away. Not so far away where you can't like see their house, but far enough away that if somebody's like having a party in their lawn or whatever, nobody could really like hear it. You know, they're far enough away from each other where sound isn't really going to be an issue. If somebody's partying in one house, you're not going to hear it in the others. And there was a vacant house next to my family that lived in the house, like in the south, for a very, very long time. I think the house was empty for about 10 years. So my family just got used to not having anyone near them. So they would do things that were pretty loud just because they were so used to nobody being around and nobody being bothered by anything. And some of the loud stuff they would do, they would like shoot guns in their backyard and whatnot because everybody had land. I think they had about 10 acres, so they had a ton of their own land, and because there was nobody around that would hear the sound of whenever they were shooting or anything, they would just do it in the backyard. But after the house had been empty for some time, a new family moved in, and they were from California, and they were doing like business things out of their house. And because they were from California, they definitely weren't used to the South where it's pretty normal to like shoot guns and everything. From California, it's just a different culture. There's a giant difference between people from California and people from like rural Alabama, okay? And people from California are not used to guns going off in their neighbors' backyards. That's not something they're used to, unless they're like from Compton, all right? But this wasn't Ice Cube and NWA moving in. It was some like California family that had moved to get away from everything and be out in the country. And regardless, my family did used to shoot in their backyard a lot. And after this California family moved in, they nicely came over one day and just said, hey, you know, we don't mind if you guys are like shooting during the day and whatnot, but can you not do it at night because it scares us? And whenever we have business clients in town, they're not used to it because they're from California as well. So if you could just not do it at night, then we'd really appreciate it. And since they were so chill about it and didn't call the police or anything because technically it's against the law and they just asked us to not do it at night, my uncle decided to be super chill about it and just be like, all right, you know, no big deal. We just, we'll keep it down at night. We're so sorry for the inconvenience, you know, just being neighborly. If you're nice and you ask people for things nicely and explain yourself, chances are people are gonna listen, all right? I don't think anybody on the planet has ever been like nicely requested to do something with a nice logical reasoning and been like, no, I refuse. So after this, the neighbors in my family had a pretty good relationship. They could basically talk to each other and like discuss things that were bothering them in the neighborhood, and they actually became friends. They used to go over to each other's houses for dinner parties. Overall, they really got along. And since the neighbors in my family had become such good friends, they asked my uncle to make sure that their son, who was 21, didn't get into any massive trouble because they were actually gonna be back in California for a few months, just moving the rest of the stuff in and getting things in order. And their 21-year-old son was gonna be staying behind. So they just asked my uncle to keep an eye on him, make sure he didn't burn the place down, you know, just general stuff, the type of stuff that you're kind of like, oh yeah, can you just make sure that my 21-year-old son doesn't accidentally sell the farm, reinvest the money into Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin crashes and we lose everything, you know, that type of stuff. And my uncle basically says, yeah, you know, I won't like babysit him, but he's 21, so I'll make sure that nothing goes crazy. I'll make sure the house doesn't burn down. I'll make sure he doesn't start, you know, batting it in the backyard, just general stuff. And as soon as they left, the kids started to party a lot, but he was 21, so if he wanted to get crunk and throw a party, there was nothing that my uncle would really do about it. And since the house was far enough away, we didn't really hear it, so my uncle's like, whatever, the kid's gonna party. He's a young kid. Who really cares? No big deal, all right? My uncle wasn't some grumpy fart who was like, how dare this kid have fun on my watch? Refuse for you to be able to enjoy yourself as my neighbor. You must submit yourself to my discretion as I am in charge of the neighborhood. It was nothing like that. My uncle was pretty chill. He could basically party and do whatever he wanted because it didn't bother him at all. And for a few weeks, that's exactly how it went, you know? It was no big deal. The parties basically happened every single night. It was definitely a little bit crazy, but like my uncle said, you know, it bother us. It didn't keep us up late at night, so it's no big deal. If the kid wants to throw down and get crunk, that's totally on him because he's 21 and he's technically an adult, and I think the parents knew that, so like my uncle wasn't gonna go over there and tell some adult kid to knock it off, you know? I think that's something that's always been frustrating to me is as an adult now, sometimes adults act like they're still in charge of me, like I can't be the one to make my decisions. So my uncle was trying to do the nice thing, okay? He wasn't just some grumpy old man, but we're about to get to the pro revenge part. So this 21-year-old's parties start turning into raves, and I'm talking about all night long raves for like weeks at a time, and for some reason, he decides that partying in the house isn't good enough, okay? So he builds this huge like dance floor thing, probably about 15 feet away, or 50, sorry, feet away from my uncle's house, meaning that it is keeping up basically the entire house all night, right? And at the time, you know, my uncle tries to be cool about it, and for 2 weeks he let these raves go on. But after the entire house not really getting much sleep for 2 weeks because this kid is throwing raves literally 50 feet away from the house, my uncle decides he's had enough. And here's the thing, okay? I understand, look, sometimes you want to party, sometimes you want to throw a rave, whatever. Like, I've never thrown a rave, but I can understand having that urge. You have acres and acres of land on your family's house, and you decided to put your, like, dance floor for your rave 50 feet away from your neighbor's house. It's just a really stupid decision to make. But regardless, this is the decision that he made. So my uncle, after 2 weeks, decides that he's going to go talk to the kid about it. He doesn't think it's going to be a confrontation, obviously. He's not walking over there, like, ready to throw fisticuffs over the fact that he has been disrespected in his own home. Like, my uncle's never been like that. So he goes over to the kid and he just basically says, hey, you know, can you please keep it down? We're losing a lot of sleep over at my house. I don't really know why you decided to put it so close to our house. You're more than welcome to move the dance floor right behind your house. You could do it like next to your house. We wouldn't hear anything, but it's just because it's so close to our house that we're hearing something. So is there any way that you can move it? And the kid basically says that you're adults, so get over it. You're going to have to find a way to like get over his partying because it's not his responsibility that we're getting sleep and whatnot. And, you know, I guess in a way, like, yes, it's wrong. But if we were all adults, whatever, I guess it could kind of be our responsibility to get sleep. I'm still not really understanding how that's the neighborly thing to do. Like, the neighborly thing to do would go, oh yes, you know, I'm so sorry that I have 10 acres to throw a party on. My bad. Let me move it 50 feet to the right. But apparently that was just too much work for this guy. But my uncle, you know, is a little bit younger than my parents, and while all of my parents' kids are a little older, I'm the oldest, but you know, like my youngest sibling is, you know, 13. Like, we're definitely older. My uncle's youngest kid is only about a couple months old when all of this going on. So he basically tells the kid, look, dude, I could understand if we were just adults, you being a jerk, but I have a little baby that needs sleep. So is there any way that you can cool it? I don't want to get anything involved, but you're keeping my baby awake all night, which is making life way harder for everyone in my house. And the kid says, and I quote, that's on you, dude, for having a kid. Your kid's health is none of my problem. So my uncle is usually pretty chill, but basically when somebody says, I don't care about your child's health, I refuse to move my party 50 feet to the left, when you're trying to be nice and just ask him to please move his dance floor to the rest of his land, my uncle decided that he was gonna get revenge, which, I mean, fair enough, dude. I don't blame you. At that point, all the gloves are off. It's time for revenge. My uncle, though, is a pretty smart guy, so he decides that he can't just go snitch on the kid, okay? I don't know why he decided to make this kid ruin his own downfall, but he decides to hatch a master plan to get this kid to call his parents and then bust the kid and basically be like, oh, while you have your parents on the phone, why don't we just tell them, have you been having a rave? So after saying it's not my fault if your kid gets sleep, right, like being a jerk, he starts trying to crap talk my uncle and has his buddies from his rave come over and start getting in my uncle's face, and they're like, yeah, bro, get out of here, bro. This is our property, bro. This is the country, bro. You can't, like, get us kicked out, bro. Like, they're just trying to fight my uncle because he's like, hey, can my child please sleep, you know? And look, I understand you gotta have your boys back, but if my boys were like, yeah, go fight that nun because she looks funny, I don't think I would do it because I'm not trying to fight a nun. But regardless, this guy's bros are like, yeah, dude, you can't do anything. So my uncle's like, all right, fine. fine, whatever. We're just we're gonna get our revenge. So basically, the next time there was a rave, my uncle gets all of us, and we're just sitting there playing Xbox, hanging out inside, like in the basement of their house, and basically says, "All right, kids, grab your guns. We're gonna go shooting." And we set up the targets and everything, which is probably 200 feet away from the rave, not towards the rave. We weren't like shooting into the rave, okay? I don't want you guys to get this confused in your story. It was the opposite direction, where he had already cleared with like the city police that everything was okay and it was safe to shoot that direction. Everything was safe. No one was going to get hurt. And my uncle basically says, let her rip. So we start lighting up those targets fast as heck, because that's just the absolute savages we are. We got aim on 700. If you ever try to mess with me, I am going to warn you, I was trained by 17 Navy SEALs to actually 1v1 Al-Qaeda in Call of Duty. Do not mess with me. Sure enough, as soon as we start doing this, Frat Boy and his goons walk over and try to like intimidate us out of doing this. Like, what, bro? You trying to ruin our party, bro? That's super not chill, bro. You're like kind of squashing the vibe, bro. I don't know if you really know this, bro, but it's just not very swag to like interrupt a rave like that, bro. That's very not dope of you. Like, that's like 0 swag, and me and my boys are like 10 swag. So that's not very sick. And we're like, well, you know, you're more than welcome to call the police. You're more than welcome to call them out there. Obviously, my uncle had an understanding with the sheriff, but at the same time, if they called the police out here for noise, then he's gonna have to shut down his rave too. So there's basically nothing that he can do about it. And so whenever they would rave, my uncle would grab us and basically say, get out there, get the targets ready, and blast away. And after about 2 weeks of us going back and forth with this, so it's been about a month now, and I was just there chilling during the summer, the neighbor walks over, the kid, and basically says, like, you are not gonna shoot again, and if you shoot again, so help me God, I will call my parents and I will get them to like come back and yell at you. I don't know if this kid understood that not everyone was afraid of his parents. Like, that's a very empty threat. Hello, grown man, I will get my grown man dad to come fight you if you do not stop when I am trying to throw a party. Like, that's just not a very good threat. I don't think my uncle was afraid of another grown man coming over and yelling at him, especially when you're the one keeping his children awake all night. Like, my uncle is not afraid of your dad. I hate to break it to you, man. I'm sure in California it's a big scary threat that your dad's gonna come use big strong words against somebody, but my uncle just really didn't care. He's like, yeah, you're more than welcome to bring your parents back so I can explain to them why you're having a rave. He didn't say that to him though. He just let the kid think that he was scared. He's like, no, don't call your parents. Come on, we can keep them out of this. And the kid get this smug look on his face and was like, oh, then stop with your disturbance of my parties, you know? Basically, like, yeah, that's right. I know you're afraid of my dad, so you better knock it off and we won't have any problems. And my uncle just smiles and is like, oh, yes, of course, you know, I'm so sorry. It won't happen again. And for 2 days, my uncle makes us stop. He lets them party. He doesn't interrupt it. He lets the kid get cocky. He lets the kid think that he's won. So that way, the next time we go out there and interrupt their party, the kid's gonna lose it and absolutely, like, call his parents and freak out. So we're chilling, and on the 3rd day, my uncle's like, all right, okay, get out there and interrupt the party. And we're like, are you sure? You know, you told us not to. You acted so scared. My uncle just smiles and goes, I've got a plan. Get out there and make him mad. Be as loud as humanly possible. Disrupt his party. So sure enough, we go out there and we start disrupting his party the way we know how, because it's pretty easy to be loud when you're doing what we were doing, okay? It's not very difficult. It's not like hard to make things be loud when you're shooting guns. It's not. Keep in mind, my uncle and this kid's dad had become pretty good friends, and one of the reasons that the dad had moved to the south was because him and this kid's mom were very Christian, okay? Not the type of Christians that would be big fans of a rave in their backyard where people are drinking and doing other things that you do at a rave. So we start interrupting, and as soon as we start doing this kid comes marching over with his phone in his hand saying, oh, I guess you'd like to talk to my parents, wouldn't you? And my uncle goes, no, don't call your parents. And the kid smugly turns around and walks back to the house and says over his shoulder, well, you've left me no choice. And my uncle just smiles and looks at us, and we're like, all right, I don't know what you've got planned, but obviously it's smart. I'm not gonna ask questions, okay? I'm not gonna question it. My uncle clearly has something going on in his head, so whatever. And basically the kid goes inside and calls his parents. The only problem is my uncle had followed them over there, so as soon as he calls his parents and starts complaining about the neighbor, he asks him to put it on speaker, and the kid smugly and stupidly puts it on speaker so my uncle can hear, but that also lets them hear the rave going on outside. So they ask what's going on, and at that point, my uncle takes the phone and starts explaining that, your house reeks of alcohol, and how the parties haven't stopped for 2 weeks, and how me and his children haven't been able to sleep, and how it was supposed to be an enjoyable summer, but your child has turned your house into a rave place where nothing but partying goes on, and it's so distracting to the rest of the neighbors. And the parents are not happy with this, because the parents are like these Christian parents that moved to the South to get away from partying, and here their son is absolutely trashing their house by throwing a massive party every weekend, every day, really, for like weeks and weeks at a time. And 7 hours after my uncle and their parents have that conversation, they're back, and they made the son pack up the same day and go somewhere else. He still had a couple weeks left before he had to return to college. They kicked him out on the spot and apologized to my uncle and his family by basically saying they were more than welcome to go to LA and stay in the hotel that they owned there for free. So my uncle got a free vacation just because he got the most masterful revenge that I have ever seen on a kid who disrespected him. And moral of the story is, if you like to party, that's fine, but the least you could do is listen to your neighbor, because chances are if you don't, they're gonna revenge you and get you kicked out of your house when you're 21 and leave you nowhere to go because your parents are gonna kick you out. And yeah, basically, moral of the story is my uncle got revenge on a crappy neighbor. Pretty savage if I do say so myself. Don't get anyone pregnant. If you do, make sure you're hot. Today's notification shout out goes to Who's Slaggin'. I think I said that right. Hopefully I did. If you want a notification shout out, send me a screenshot of your notifications on Instagram. And I'll see you guys next time with another video. I'm out. Peace.